Sarah Huckabee Sanders goes on Fox News, and I'm going to play a little bit of the clip for you. Let's go.
Reporters were asking the White House about it yesterday.
I'm wondering what the president's reaction is to the Indiana governor signing that bill into law, and does the president have a position on at what age these kinds of therapies and surgeries are appropriate?
That's something for a child and their parents to decide. It's not something that we believe should be decided by legislators, so I'll leave it there.
In Arkansas, lawmakers passed a new bill which would require parents' approval for teachers to use trans students' preferred pronouns.
Bravo, bravo. I love how we're talking about Indiana, then we're going to talk about Arkansas, and we've essentially, in my opinion, taken it up a notch. By the way, we've already passed, outlawing chemical castration of kids and, bottom surgeries. See what I did there? Bottom surgeries. I'm adopting their language, right? Genital mutilation surgeries. That's what it is. If I can even say that in this country, who knows?
Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Republican governor of Arkansas. Governor, this is an issue that is popping up in your state as well. Tell me the journey there and what you think of Indiana now getting added to the list.
Anytime as government officials we have the ability to enact.
All right, I got to set this up. I'm gonna get back. I want you to watch the B-roll. For those of you who don't know, in the news business, B-roll is the videos that they're going to try to keep your attention. That's why they do it. They're going to show you a bunch of pictures, video right beside Sarah Huckabee Sanders while she's speaking. I want you to pay attention to what they're showing you. Okay? Combine the lower third, gender-affirming care, propaganda. I'm telling you, this is propaganda from Fox News. I'm just telling you, this is propaganda from Fox News. You can already tell they've accepted a whole lot of phony presuppositions. Watch the B-roll and listen to Governor Sanders.
Things that protect kids and empower parents. Those are things that we have to look for and try to enforce on the state level. We certainly cannot expect anything meaningful in this space to come out of Washington, and it's why I think you're seeing so many Republican governors step up and pass legislation that does exactly that.
All right, so first you've got words like inclusive and words like gender neutral. Okay, that's the first part. It's going to get a little bit more overt here in just a moment. Okay, back to this interview. Thanks for bearing with me. We're going to break this down here.
Protects kids, it bans some of these permanent life-altering surgeries, and makes sure that we're putting the focus on our children and empowering parents to make the best decisions possible.
Well, and what you just said, as I've talked with medical professionals, is so critical. We actually don't have a lot of data on what...
Now, you see that right there? Protect kids, protect trans rights, not protect children from making life-altering decisions. No, while Harris and Sarah are having this conversation, the B-roll is sympathetic towards the LGBTQ enclave and the trans enclave, promoting this idea, showing the people who are protesting, but not showing the millions and millions of outraged parents that the left has now decided to come for our kids in a myriad of different ways. It's the little things. It's not a question of what to indoctrinate. It's a question of, it's not a question of whether or not to indoctrinate, but what to indoctrinate.
It's reversible and what's not. And it could very well be permanent, a decision that an 11-year-old, for example, would make in some states. And permanence at 11 is very different. It's the idea of where you are. We're both moms. We know that.
I have 3 kids, Harris, and most days they can't decide what they want for breakfast. We go through 10 different versions of what we're going to dress up for Halloween. The idea that they are capable at that age of making some of those life-altering permanent decisions, they're just not prepared and ready to make that. And it's our job to do things that help protect kids, empower parents, and that's exactly what we're doing here in Arkansas and what you're seeing take place across the country.
Well, and look, if parents were invited to the table, that'd be one thing. But in many of these Democrat-led districts and cities where they think it's a good idea for the teacher or other authorities to make the decision with the child without the parents knowing, they shouldn't be doing that about anything. I mean, we should be constantly being, communicated with.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. The parents have to be involved, and not just involved, but they have to be the decision maker. That's their responsibility. That's their role. And trying to cut parents out of the process is simply unacceptable and not something I think that we can allow to happen.
The latest Fox News poll shows education is a key issue heading into 2020.
All right, so the rest of this interview is good. You should check it out up at foxnews.com. Governor Sanders goes in to talk about the LEARNS Act and the success, school choice, and things like that. And she even comments on the tornadoes that have torn through our state as well last week. But you have to be aware of those things. A lot of you probably maybe just are passive news observers. Most people are, and you probably have never actually looked. Not just you may agree with what Sarah, and I would venture to say most people who were watching that Fox News interview were agreeing with what Governor Sanders was saying. But then look at the B-roll they're rolling next to her, and you can see, even on Fox News, you have a clear bias. Now, specifically with these life-altering decisions, one of the things that I have brought up many times on, I know I've brought it up on this program before and some of the other shows that I do, has to do with the fact that not only is the, let's say the trans agenda on kids a huge problem and we need to protect them, but it's also a way to essentially depopulate our population, because this stuff is not reversible. And if it is in some instances, maybe with limited hormones for a little while or something like that, not, if you do it from essentially, elementary school on, it is irreversible. But what you're talking about is people, you're talking about young girls and young boys who are making decisions that essentially mean they are giving up ever having the possibility of procreating on their own. They are literally giving up the possibility of being a mother or a father themselves. And what that means is we will have fewer and fewer children. I know for decades now, the left in this country and those intellectuals that, claim to be on the right but are really secretly working for the left, they are obsessed with this idea of getting you convinced that there are too many people on this planet. That is actually a very debatable point, and many people actually think we don't have enough, and that we are now, even specifically in China and the rest of the world, are on a population decline right now, where we actually are going to have very difficult time maintaining any sort of global trade status with each other, because we're just simply not going to have enough people to fulfill, the requirements to keep something like that going. But anyway, I digress. That's something that we can save for another day. But I will say this, and I don't know what this is going to do, so I don't in terms of the censors that are out there on the interwebs, but I do want to show something. I saw this post the other day on a website that may or may not be acceptable. Well, it's a direct competitor to Facebook. So I saw a post the other day by the CEO of a competitor to Facebook called Gap. And this is what it said. Red states must make it unbearable for liberals to live there. Pass legislation they hate, promote values they hate, shun and shame things they like, give them no other choice but to leave to some blue state hellhole. Now, I do not believe that that is necessarily the intent of Arkansas legislators when I think they generally want to pass good legislation that protects our kids. And we've talked so much about it over the last few weeks. The Arkansas legislature, as of the recording here, is still in session. They are debating right now whether or not to extend the session. There's still a lot of stuff going on. It's very fluid. It's also very difficult right now to get in touch with legislators because they are so darn busy. But anyway, the point of that post, though, is not lost in terms of the cause of this. If we are using what little ounce of federalism we have left in this thing we call a constitutional republic, and the several states across the country are now going to their state legislators and they're passing laws that the corporate fascists in government do not like, laws that are going against what you see promoted in the commercials on network television, if anybody even watches that anymore, going against the advertisements that you see on YouTube, going against the new Bud Light can. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? These laws are doing a couple of things. They may they may make people turn violent, as we have seen, and we need to be prepared for that, and that's why we have the Second Amendment. But they also may do exactly what that post says and may get people who just don't agree to also exercise that last little bit of federalism we have left in this constitutional republic that is quickly becoming a communist nation, and maybe people will go where they feel those laws are respecting their LGBT-isms. It's something to think about. Certainly is something to think about, and it needs to be considered. And that may not be the intent, but it certainly may be the practical effect. And I, for one, think the post is awesome, but maybe that's just me.